So on January 30th, StGs was on mini sabbatical. So people from StGs went to St. Lawrence in Libertyville on site to worship with them. People from StGs worshiped online with St. Lawrence and Trinity, and some with the National Cathedral. Last week, Trinity and St. Lawrence and St. Elizabeth and StGs did pulpit swaps. So the clergy from the different congregations flip-flopped and went to other congregations so we could all hear different perspectives and see what was happening. And this week, while St. Lawrence is on mini sabbatical, people from St. Lawrence are here physically present. Hello and welcome. You're here with us online. You're worshiping other places. The church together in the past couple of weeks has been seeing how church can be different, has been seeing different ways of doing and hearing and speaking, has heard the gospel proclaimed through different voices and different experiences. In our physical bodies, we have been in different places and seen how we can act and be and move. We've seen the Spirit and felt the Spirit from different vantage points. And that seemed especially poignant to me this morning as we're looking at the context of Jesus's sermon, whether depending on whether you're looking at it Matthew or Luke, it's the Sermon on the Mount or the Sermon on the Plain or the Sermon on the Level Place. But this first teaching of Jesus to the people that is recorded is all about being together, especially in the Gospel of Luke. Luke's version of this sermon is really different than Matthew's sermon. Matthew positions Jesus up on a mountain, giving the authority from above. Luke intentionally puts Jesus on the plain, on the level ground, in the middle of the people. I imagine it kind of like the gospel procession, just parked in the middle with the kids all around and people from all kinds of places milling about, making noise. Jesus enacts physically what he teaches. He gets in the middle of the people because it's worth paying attention to, because it's worth being together to talk about, because what he teaches requires us to physically embody. And so he physically embodies it first to show us that this teaching is not just something to park in our brains, but it's something to do with our bodies and to do it together. In the Gospel of Luke, we hear about the birth of Jesus, which we don't hear in any of the other Gospels. For Luke, Jesus coming into this world in a physical body matters. It changes the world. And Luke strives throughout his gospel to show how that world has changed and that this is an event that we don't just remember. So we celebrated it, 2 months ago? It's kind of a faded memory. 2 months has been a long time. But Jesus coming into the world is not something to just park in our brains and remember, but it's something to live in our bodies and do. Jesus matters. We come here on a Sunday morning because we got plenty of other things we could be doing, but we come here because Jesus matters to us. And if Jesus matters to us, then we have to embody in that, in what we say and what we do. Jesus preaches this radical relationality that is based on God's unfailing generosity and grace. Jesus' teaching this morning, this piece of the sermon, is this long list of to-dos, which many of us might be prone to make a checklist and start working towards. I'm seeing some knowing looks. I'm looking at some of you. I have my checklist in my room, right? We might be inclined to do that, but as we get to each item, we're like, well, no, that one's going to be too hard. I'll do that one later today. And no, that one's going to be too hard. I'll do that one tomorrow. And so we start moving our to-do list to different days because it's just too hard. Love your enemies, forgive all the people, all the things. And that is intentional. Jesus is not listing out a list of things to do so that we will go do them and check them off our list, and this will be an easy path forward. Jesus gives us these examples of ways we are supposed to live the change of God in this world so that we know that this is hard, blasted work. That living the change of God in this world means it's gonna be hard. It's gonna require us to do things we do not want to do. It's going to require us to look at society differently and say, we can be better. We can be different. We can try this. Jesus says, forget everything you thought you knew about how to live and live differently. and do the work in your body, in the world. It's an invitation to live in God's grace. And he tells us this so that we know that the only way to get this kind of work done, the only way to do that, because I do not have the motivation to do all this hard work all on my own, is through God. The only way that this happens is because Jesus came to the world, because Jesus fills us with that grace, because we are saved by the power of Christ and given the Holy Spirit to do the work together. That's why we come together, because together we encourage and hold and support. And when I can't, you can. And when you can't, she can. And together we move forward in the world. The only way to do this hard work is to do it in the power of Jesus. And then we do it transformed. Archbishop Melissa Skelton, who was Archbishop in a province in Canada and now does some work in several dioceses in the Episcopal Church in the US, says often, don't come to church expecting to say the same. She said, don't show up in these pews if your expectation is that your life is going to be the same when you walk in and out. I think that that's a powerful statement. We come here expectant that we will be different when we walk out these doors. We come here expectant that our behavior will be different when we walk out these doors. We come here expecting that the world will be different because we came and worshiped and let Christ move in our lives. Otherwise, why are we here? Go get a donut, have some brunch, do both, right? Make no little plans, Adam Spencer preached here last Sunday. He used Burnham's motto, make no little plans. Jesus's vision is bold. The world will be radically different because we're here. That is a bold vision. Jesus fills us with grace and forgiveness and abundance over and over again to remind us that the world can be different because we are here as followers of Jesus Christ. These 4 congregations in the North Shore who are willing to explore what it means to collaborate, what it means to partner in some things, are trying to live into some of that bold vision, trying to live into some of what it means to be different in the world. That whole, it couldn't possibly be done this wayness, we're trying to get over and past and see what God will do with. And that is really fun. Like the crowds and the level playing field, the level place, the plane, we come together to hear Jesus's word and to see how it manifests in our bodies, in our communities, and in the world. And this discernment work that we do, it's hard, but we do it together. I think it's interesting what we don't get in the Bible versus what we do. We don't get a lot of the color commentary. Like what I would really like to get is somebody giving the play-by-play on the ground of the sermon, right? So we hear what Jesus says, but what we don't get is what everybody else is saying. Like cue the murmuring, right? Cue the, that is not how we do things here. No, cue the, no, that's not gonna happen. Cue the, that is totally not practical. That won't work. It couldn't possibly be. That is crazy. No way, right? All of the mumbling, you know it's happening because it's true. Because it's true. When God calls us, all of those words are going to be in our minds and in our hearts because it's almost always true. Because God's call is almost always radically impossible and hard and also world-changing. You cannot change the world with something that is simple. You change the world with the gift of grace. And so together we hold each other when we want to murmur, when we want to proclaim that it can't possibly be, when we desperately want to go back to the way things always were, as if the way things always were actually existed. We hold each other in grace. St. Elizabeth and St. Lawrence have both had their annual meetings, and both of them have talked about and prayed about and held in discernment where God is calling them as particular communities of faith in this world. And today, Trinity in Highland Park, just down the street, that way, and StGs, we're having ours. We're looking at where God is calling us to be bold in the world. We're looking at the hard stuff that Jesus asks us to do so that the world can be radically different. And we do that work together. So St. Lawrence people, bear with me. I'm going to do a little talking about StGs because I'm so proud of this community. StGs, in the past couple of years especially, has been living in a prayerful and worshipful position based on the traditions of the church. We hold each other in prayer. The prayer groups and the study groups have sought to see where God would call us. We live into the tradition of our patron saint, which I think is amazing, gathering people together at a table, nurturing community over food. That is what our patron saint did, and that is the charisma of this particular congregation. We care about feeding people and gathering as community. Those are kind of the core of our DNA. We share joy and hope in a really abundant way, which is also really hard to do, right? In a world where there are armies knocking at each other's door, threatening the lives of millions of people, it is hard to share joy and hope. It is hard to talk about being a community, but we do that hard work because that is where God calls us to do, right? Further in our annual meeting after this service, we won't be able to miss how the Holy Spirit has been moving in this community. The pictures and the stories are amazing because where the Holy Spirit goes, so goes joy, but also goes bold call and hard work that seems impossible. But Jesus has no room for that, and Luke has no room for that. We are called to live as if Christ matters, not just a memory. As Blessed Butler Sharp says at our vestry meetings, we follow Jesus. You going to live that life of faith or not? Okay. We trust Jesus or we don't. We live a life of faith or we don't. We hold each other or we don't. We follow God's call or we don't. But what I do know is that when we do, the world is changed. One person, one heart, one breath at a time. And I'm grateful to be on this journey with StGs as we do it.